So if we go back to instructor, we want to do meeting dates. And remember these buttons? If Banner's being finicky, saying, I don't want you to click over there, then try these arrows. So if we click the down arrow here, it should take us down. If we want to click the up, it'll go up. So we want to go down, and blank means what down here for instructor? Right. It's to be determined, really. There isn't an instructor yet. It's to be determined, essentially. Well, let's say it was determined. What you'd want to do, tab over, click the three dots. Again, it's your discretion if you want to click advisor or not. Personally, I like clicking advisor because it lets me see who's an advisor and faculty member in the query that I have. Click go, and go ahead and click into last name, and we'll go ahead and decide on Dr. Dillon. We would type in the last name. This is case sensitive, capital D, and then the wild card is the percentage sign. So always put that percentage sign in and click go. So this will give you all the results for the last name of Dillon, spelled just in that way with the case sensitive in that same manner. But this is who we wanted, so it's perfect. So it automatically selects because that's the only option. If there was more than one, you just need to select on that ID. But because Dr. Dillon's our only option here, we'll click select and we'll save. So now, again, it's instantaneous. Students can now see and say, oh, wait, there's an instructor assigned now, so it's going to be Dr. Dillon. Now, there's not an automatic notification for students this way, okay? This is something that is an instantaneous change, but something that is not an automatic notification. I really want to share this with you all, this primary indicator button. This button means that Dr. Dillon is the one that is going to be essentially not just the only instructor, but the one that's able to enter in grades for that course. Because you might be thinking, well, Ainsley, what if another instructor teaches it, but then Dr. Dillon will just enter grades? Or what if there's more than one instructor? It's the same thing like what we talked about above. You want to click Insert, and you can go ahead and put in the other instructor. So let's do that. So if we do the three dots again, and again, my preference is the advisor. Again, totally up to you. Click Go. And who would be another instructor? DE percentage. So as you can see, you can just do part of a name in the wildcard. So it'll pull up everything from DE onwards that we have for an instructor and advisor. So let's pick Jude. So we'll just select the ID, click select, and then we'll save Alt Instructor Conflict. Okay, so this is perfect because it goes back to something we've already talked about. If you have a conflict with an instructor and you want to avoid overrides, right? Because everyone wants to avoid them. The last training that we had, you saw a yellow box that says, do you want to create an override? And then you saw this same one here that says, hey, just go ahead and click this override indicator and click save. This is something we still want to avoid. For training purposes, we showed you what that looks like for the overrides. But again, and I can't stress this enough, we really want to avoid them. If you see these overrides for an instructor, or if you want to avoid them, then the same thing applies. You could just go ahead and leave the second instructor off, or leave that instructor off in general if you get the same warning for Dr. Dillon, because we really don't want to create an override for an instructor. Again, for training purposes, you saw what that looked like. But for here, and with that great question, one way to avoid them is you just go ahead and leave that blank until that conflict is resolved in the department. And the decision is made, oh, we'll actually have Jude co-teach a different course rather than this one. And if that's the case, then you can just go ahead and click delete. But before I do that, let's say that there is no override here, so ignore this, but they were both going to teach half the course. Now this is a 3-credit course, right? So let's say Dr. Dillon is going to be responsible for 2 credits of the course, and Jude will be responsible for 1. Banner works off of something called percent of responsibility. So it looks at percentage of this. So in this case, if Dr. Dillon's going to be responsible for 2 credits, then you could put in 64 for a 3-credit course. And then for Dr. De Palma, you could put in 36, I believe is the math for that. I'm going to hope so. I typically need calculators all the time. So you could do that and then click save. Because then what Banner recognizes workload-wise is, okay, Dr. Dillon is responsible and his workload is going to be 64% of the course. And as we know, mathematically, that's really going to be about 2 credits of the 3-credit course. And same with Dr. De Palma. Banner saying, okay, so Dr. De Palma is in charge of really 1 credit of the course, or 36% of it. So it really goes by percentage in Banner in that sense. Let's say Dr. De Palma, to avoid an override, let's say you don't want to do this O. Then all you could do again is just leave the instructor off. In this case, let's say that Dr. De Palma decided, I'm going to teach something else. You can just click delete and you're good. Okay, so that's how you would remove an instructor. You just do delete, and you could do that here too for Dr. Dillon. Now you see this warning, instructor total percent of responsibility does not equal 100. Well, that's because Banner's saying, hey, there's only 1 instructor on this course now. So who's going to teach the rest of it? Well, if Dr. Dillon's the only instructor, then we would just need to go back here, type in 100, press tab, and click save. So just a little recap. If there are differences in teaching of credits in that way, percent of responsibility is your go-to. If you get that warning like we did before, where it said override for instructor, and you don't want to click that override, and again, it's something we have to avoid, then an option you have is just to leave off the instructor until the departments resolve that conflict. Then you can put in that instructor, and then there shouldn't be an override needed because the conflict was resolved internally. That really does it for specifics in that sense. That is currently what we have. Again, in Ban Prod, you will probably see the overrides here for instructors and O's here. So it looks like this, okay? And again, that's because we went off of what departments told us. If you see that, that should be a big warning of, hey, there's a scheduling conflict. In that circumstance, you want to make sure that that's resolved. And once it is resolved, and again, how departments do that is on departments, but when you do, you want to make sure that you go back to the section that has that O for override and manually remove it. So you will have to go back, manually click in, remove the O, and click save. This is something I've noticed. If you have an override here for an instructor and you're trying to not to de-click it, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't, then you are going to have to click in here and delete the instructor, save, and put back the instructor if you want to remove an override for an instructor on a section. And it won't let you uncheck the override indicator. Because then when you put that individual back in, if they're going to remain to teach this course and someone else is going to teach another course instead, then you should be able to put back in this example, Dr. Dillon, without needing the override.
So I have a question on your overrides.
Yes.
Is there, look at all the courses just to see which ones have the overrides and which ones don't? Or do you have to go into every single one individually to see that?
So that depends on your access. And here's what I mean by that. Access was given based off of subject codes. So for instance, only certain people have access to the ART subject code. Only certain people have access to the PLP or the Chem. If you want to look at other sections that might share the same classroom, but it's a whole different department, there's a possibility you might not be able to view that. But here's the really good news. If you're looking at avoiding an override, or you see where there's an O for a meeting location and credits, like right here, then you could go up to related and you have these 2 options. That will let you know which CRN that is using this room. And it's SSAM-ATX. So that lets you know what's scheduled in that room for fall 2021 and all the CRNs associated. You should also see the subject codes. Now, as for if you want to look for availability elsewhere and not worry about LS103, if there's an O, then you would use the SLQ Meet. And this lets you know what rooms are available at that time you entered for that section. So there's where you can look at the overrides in that sense. As for instructors, there is not a report for that at the moment. Reports are in progress right now and currently being decided on, things of that nature, so you wouldn't be able to pull up a report like that. That's where, again, on departments, you're probably going to have to navigate conversations with who's teaching what. I'm also happy to talk about report options for seeing instructors teaching what, if there does happen to be some conflict that maybe it was accidentally looked over. You never know. Things happen, right? That's the information I have on that, if that makes sense. One last thing I want to share before we end for today. Again, you can just click the X here and it takes you back out. If you need to access training materials for Banner, go ahead and just press the plus here, and we're going to click the home page because that's how we get to CSU Public Home, at least for me. And if you go to faculty and staff and click Banner information, this is the main page for everything Banner information wise. So it lets you know timelines, lets you know all this information. To access training materials, you're going to want to scroll down, and where it says Banner Training for Employees, you can just click the image and it's going to take you to Blackboard. Let's say that you're good to go. You'd want to use your new NetID with the C and the password. You log in. To access this, you should have something that says My Courses, Banner Professional Learning, or you might have to search for it. Right here is what you want to view for a course. Now, this is the main page of it. So if you actually go to course modules, you're going to see all the available trainings and how-tos. So you have advising here, right? So self-service Banner for advisors and marking a student advised, viewing class rosters, things of that nature. We have a Banner FAQ that's continually being addressed and worked on. And then here, you start seeing more trainings, but for specifically course scheduling, they're going to be right in here. And as you can tell, Linda, who we have been working with to get the how-tos and videos up, she's phenomenal. I see her here on the call. Linda, shout out to you. All of these are available for course scheduling. So for instance, adding a meeting location. If you need to look for room locations at the SLQ meet, right? If, oh, wait a minute, military time, right here is a PDF. If you click the PDF, it will automatically populate for you. But if you are someone who, like me, is visual and you want the video, you can watch the video here, or again, you could also view the how-tos that we have. We're going to constantly add to this as we learn navigating Banner and, again, the information that we have. But this right here, course scheduling resources, and it's already available for your viewing, which I believe it is, then you can just click right here for the available how-tos. But this is where you could access this information.